This is the Court Leader's Advantage, a podcast series for court professionals and by court professionals. Brought to you by thecourtleader.net and in cooperation with NACM, the National Association for Court Management. I'm Pete Kiefer, and welcome to the Court Leader's Advantage podcast series. Last month, we talked about the 5 biggest issues facing young workers. This month, we'll look at the 5 biggest opportunities young workers have in 2025. These 5 are the opportunity to develop valuable digital skills and technology expertise, access to continuous learning and development to expand their knowledge and skills, the chance to build a global network of peers and mentors, the ability to excel in collaboration and connectivity, which enhances team dynamics, and the opportunity to find a career where they feel valued and seen. Our moderator today is Erika Schmid, Supervisor for the Multnomah County Circuit Court in Portland, Oregon. Here to discuss these opportunities are Samantha Wallis, Assistant Court Administrator for the District Court in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho; Daniel Meza Rincón, Deputy Juvenile Court Administrator for the State of Utah in Salt Lake City; Victoria Murray, Business Intelligence Analyst and Supervisor for the Maricopa County Circuit Court in Phoenix, Arizona; Carrie Summers-Nomura, Program Coordinator for the Clackamas County Circuit Court in Oregon City, Oregon; and Courtney Whiteside, Director of the Municipal Court in St. Louis, Missouri. So let's join Erika as we discuss the 5 biggest opportunities young workers have today.
So to get us started, we're going to talk about digital skills and technological expertise. So Samantha, with the rapid evolution of technology, young workers have the opportunity to develop valuable digital skills. As people who have grown up in the digital age, have only ever had an iPad in front of them, they are very prone to it. So proficiency in areas like data analysis, artificial intelligence, coding, and cybersecurity can really set them apart in the job market. The demand for tech-savvy professionals continues to grow across the industries, especially as our courthouses are advancing in technology. I know we just moved into a new courthouse that has brand new technology, and I feel like we're part AV now. So how are you utilizing technology in your courthouse that is enticing your young workers?
So the focus on this current fiscal year at the Idaho Supreme Court has been actually on cybersecurity. Idaho is doing its best to recognize that it's a vital and important part of court security, while also being at the mercy of the legislators for our budget. I mean, we were never really technologically advanced to begin with, so it is quite difficult to try and play catch up sometimes. That's just the reality of public sector work, unfortunately. But we are, everyone across Idaho, all court employees are switching to M365 across the state. The clerks and all court employees are given laptops instead of desktop. So it's a laptop, with the docking station to allow more flexibility, but also trying to plan for the future in case another event such as COVID happens again. That's really where we got pretty much all the technology we currently have, the D10s in the courtroom. It was because of COVID, with COVID money. In a broader sense, so I know I sort of blamed technology in my response to the issue of work-life balance, but the younger generation's grasp and knowledge of technology is such an asset. Every court uses technology, and being flexible and adaptable when technology changes and updates is so important in being able to be successful at a career in the court system. Technology is evolving at faster paces than ever before, and I think being in a younger generation tends to allow us to embrace the changes rather than fear them. Idaho switched to a paperless case management system in 2018, and I remember that the panic that gripped a lot of employees who were comfortable with the old, outdated system. If I had $1 for every time I have heard the phrase, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it," I could probably buy, a modestly comfortable office chair here. That is not to say, the Gen X and boomers are not inherently adept at technology. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I do think that growing up with technology allows a person to have a better ability to understand and learn it. It's said that growing up, learning another language makes it infinitely easier to learn. And technology is essentially another language that you need to be familiar with. Again, I think experiencing the rapid evolution of technology from a young age makes us more comfortable with change and therefore less resistant to it. And it really gives us such an advantage in the workplace.
No, absolutely agree. And I had kind of a mixed experience when we switched from carbon copy forms to digital forms, and we also moved to a new courthouse where we upgraded all of our technology systems. I thought it was going to be a difficult process for, like, say, clerks who had been around for several years, but the one clerk who was like, I am never using a digital form, all of a sudden he is using exclusively digital forms because he found it easier. But I'm also finding in onboarding new clerks who are fresh out of law school, when we're training on the courtroom technology and going over Zoom or WebEx, they're just like, no, I already know this. So that advance of them coming into a job already knowing most of the technology has definitely elevated them. But anybody else, what other technology are you guys utilizing in your courtrooms?
I'd like to say we actually at our court have a whole department for data integrity and analytics. So we are all day looking at all of the data that's going into our case management system and have reports that let us know if there's things that are wrong or errors. And it really has been refreshing to see everybody embrace this case management system and to embrace being online and the importance of data, because we really do use it to inform a lot of decisions, especially about programs or new things that we want to try out. So we've really adapted a data culture here, and everybody, we do have one judge, I think, who still uses a typewriter, but they still know that at least their staff have to know how to use the system. So we're all very technologically advanced. We were the test case for Microsoft, I believe, for Court Connect. So that's how we do everything online, all the court virtual hearings. So it's been quite a learning curve, but it's possible to get everybody on board, even if it doesn't feel like it at first.
I'll add something. So in Utah, so I work for the Juvenile Court, as I mentioned before, and we have our own case management system. As technology advances, right, we continue to enhance that case management system to make the work more streamlined for our employees. And I think that's another way that we can come alongside our team members who may be feeling overwhelmed with all the different tasks that they've been sort of assigned. And it's making technology make their work easier. And so I will say AI scares me. In the past, I've said it feels like witchcraft. But, I have thought a lot about this, and, I know it's going to make it's going to give us the tools to further support our team members. And so exploring ways that can make the day-to-day work easier is something that, we're looking at in our jurisdiction to figure out, how we implement that in the day-to-day work.
Access to continuous learning and development, Victoria. There are more opportunities than ever for young workers to expand their knowledge and skills through online courses, certification, and training programs. Platforms like Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, and other educational resources make it easier for them to stay competitive and gain new expertise without needing formal degrees. What continuous learning and development is your court providing for your staff?
So our court, I think earlier someone mentioned some mandatory trainings that we do, but within that, we actually have a block of time dedicated each year where you're not assigned a training, but you're required to take trainings. And we have a whole page called the Hub that has all of the court-sponsored trainings in it. We also recently got Udemy, which is a platform for learning. So there's quite a few very interesting courses on things from minute taking to writing code. So there's a lot of different things that they can explore on their own. We offer tuition reimbursement at our court. So you can actually come in without a degree and earn that degree while you're here working with us. We also have some people who have been pushing to try to remove degree requirements from job descriptions where it may not be necessary, or allowing for supplementing experience for that education to make it more accessible to more people. We have, and this, it sounds like a couple of courts around here do this. We also, the Arizona Administrative Office of the Courts, our AOC, has a 3-tier training program. So it starts for supervisors, goes to managers, then for executive leadership, and they all cover different aspects of our court and the courts around the nation and what they do and expectations and things that sometimes you don't learn until you're a couple of years into working for a court. Or even if you've worked in a court before, not all courts are built the same. So they really give you a good idea of what happens in Arizona in all of the counties, not just Maricopa County. So I just completed the ACS. That's where I heard about this podcast. So it is very informative. And if you're in Arizona in the courts, I encourage you to ask if you can go to that. And I think outside of that, it's just, we really do want to encourage people to gain those soft skills and make it easier to transfer. We have such a large court with so many opportunities. There's really something for everybody. So giving them the opportunity to move around so we can keep the people retained and keep them in the court is really beneficial.
Oh, absolutely agree. Training has become absolutely vital. So has anybody else been doing any continuous learning or development for their courts?
I think we shared a lot about it in part 1 and talked about it, but it's such an integral part. I mean, the judiciary as a whole is very reactionary. However, if we as court administrators and like roles almost have to be forward thinking and anticipate kind of what's coming, and preparing those that come behind us to do the same. So I think that it is imperative. It sounds like you guys have some really cool opportunities.
Yeah, something else that I'll mention, just being a NACM member is part of continuous learning. It really is. I mean, just us being all together to be able to record this podcast is sort of amazing. I'm learning so much. I've been taking notes on whatever you guys have all been doing. And I mean, being able to go to the conferences, even if you can't make it in person, you know, they have the virtual sessions. And I mean, I already mentioned the CCM program, the Certified Court Management program with NCSC. Then you can go on to get your Certified Court Executive program. And I'm assuming most courts would pay for you to do those. So hopefully.
So global connectivity and networking. Courtney, with the world more interconnected than ever, young workers have the opportunity to build global networks and collaborate with diverse professionals across industries and even countries. Social media, online communities, and professional platforms enable them to connect with mentors, peers, and leaders from literally around the world. So this broadens their professional horizons, which is amazing. So how is your courthouse connecting to social media to be more in tune with young workers?
Yeah, I mean, people all around the world are really at just your fingertips, whether it is through texting or through some type of social media or here or a webinar. I remember going to a NACM conference and there were representatives there from Dubai, and I just thought I'd absolutely arrived because I was at a conference with judges from Dubai. And I made it a point just to call home and be like, what are you doing, Mom? She'd be like, oh, I'm doing whatever. And I'm like, I'm just sitting across from some judges from Dubai. No big deal. And I think that it really is so exciting that there is so much global activity and connectivity that you can share and learn different cultures, different aspects, different ways of application of the law. I mean, I think social media is huge. Our court in particular does not have its own social media, but we do partner with St. Louis County, and we collaborate with their public information officers and communications teams to put things out on our behalf. It's important. It's important that the public knows what's going on. I think it's really important that we recognize our strengths in each other in our respective courts and departments. And my webpage would be very boring and it would read like a lecture. So I will put something together and be like, hey, younger professional, how do you feel about this? Partnering through professional organizations for people all across the area. St. Louis County is a very large geographic area, but we do have like 80 municipal courts locally. So, you can network that close to home, but then it's also interesting to talk to municipal courts or other limited jurisdiction courts in the tribal arena, or, hey, court administrator in Vegas, how are you guys handling X? What's going on in King County? So I think those are good. I think that the opportunities that we provide are imperative for laying that path of those bricks on the path of an individual to be able to connect with other people and hopefully learn how great of a court we are and that they want to stay for forever and ever. But NACM is a huge part of that. And I think that one of the most exciting things for me when I first started NACM was the International Association for Court Administration. I'm like, what? There's somebody over in Scotland that is doing this is so cool. Like, when do we get to have a conference over there? So I think that opportunity is always there. And if somebody sends something out specifically only for our membership, I share it with our clerks. My deputy director, the court's deputy director, I should say, she a NACM member, and she will be coming to mid-year with me. And I think that is great. And it's neat to see those connections being made because a lot of people don't understand that those are even possibilities. So just exposing people to what is out there and the networking. If I do guest lecturing somewhere at a college or university here, I will say, does anybody want to come with me? And experience that and get to network with different people, coming and going to different municipality events or summits, so just giving an opportunity for exposure and encouraging those relationships that, quite frankly, they're way better at than I am.
Yeah, I completely agree. You only ever usually think of your own courthouse, maybe the counties next to you. But when we think of the broader horizons beyond even just our state, it really opens things up. Is anybody else having social media or connectivity networking stuff at their courthouse?
We don't necessarily have any social media going on, but part of my job is doing networking, and beyond just the court community partners, I've really been trying to, we're in the middle of a big move. So we have a new courthouse that's being built, and in May, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we will all be moving in. But it's a new neighborhood. It's up the hill from us. And so I've been reaching out to the local schools, because what's happened is when I do job fairs and things like that, I'm really noticing that most people don't come to our table because they're like, I don't have a JD. I'm not going into law school. And it's like, no, there's all the operational jobs too. So I feel like that's a really important piece in the networking part, from a recruitment standpoint, is that we really need to dispel the myth that you need to, be going to law school or be a law school graduate to work in the courts.
All right, so collaboration and connectivity. Daniel, raised in an era of being in constant contact, you are always available on your phone. I know we talked about this at our last one, of always being connected on our phones. Young workers bring this dynamic to the workforce as well. Gen Z especially show that they excel in team dynamic and demonstrate a high level of multitasking. Millennials, on the other hand, tend to show that they want to simply be left alone and prefer solitary work. These are stereotypes, of course. This is not the standard. So how do you ensure collaboration between multi-generational workforces?
That's a very good question. And I know we're talking about opportunities and how do we prepare for really the diverse workforce that we now are encountering, right? One thing that I just thought about, we really need to equip ourselves, our leaders, people in leadership positions to know how to navigate conversations with all of our team members, of different generations. And I don't know about you all, but sometimes in leadership positions, we are put in a place of mediating a lot. We individuals may not work well with each other because they may not understand the way that they go about different elements of their jobs. And so at times we tend to be sort of those individuals that help navigate those difficult conversations. And so I do think that it's important for individuals in leadership positions to sort of understand how to navigate those conversations, understand the different working styles. And like you mentioned a minute ago, a lot of what we know is based on stereotypes, and people will differ. We may have two 25-year-olds and they will be completely different, and that is okay. And so I think that it's important for us to have a culture that establishes relationships, that encourages team building, because a lot of the times these sort of differences are resolved when we start working with one another and we see each other as humans. Right? We're not seeing each other as like, oh, I'm a millennial and I'm a boomer and I'm a Gen X. We stop seeing ourselves as sort of like individuals within this group, but rather, hey, we're all in here as a team and we're working toward the same mission, the same vision that we have. So how do we ensure collaboration? Number one, I think we need to be mindful of building a team culture. Just making sure that even in the communications that we have with our teams every day, we focus and emphasize and stress the common purpose that we have as a team. Because if we have that, then I think that will foster better working relationships. One thing that we do in Utah is we have a ton of committees. We have committees to create committees. Sometimes we joke about that. But, I've grown to love sort of that structure because most of the times, and I've seen, I get to be a part of many of those work groups and committees, we have a very diverse group of individuals that join. And I think it gives a voice and a space for individuals from different generations to sort of come together and collaborate, right? And again, there's always that common purpose. It's like, we're here to achieve this. How do we get here from here? And it's awesome because then we get perspectives from all the different individuals, our parts, and we learn from one another. So all to say is just providing spaces where we can foster those conversations and collaborations. As leaders, sort of emphasize and stress sort of that team mentality, always bringing it back to that common mission. And I would say also getting to know our teams. And, if I know that somebody will excel working by themselves, then provide opportunities for that. We're all so different, right? And as long as we all know that we're part of one team working toward the same mission, I think we should provide spaces for that.
That is a beautiful outlook on collaboration and teamwork. I love that so much. So anybody else, how are you guys ensuring collaboration in your courtrooms and courthouses and workforce?
I must confess, when I read this, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, icebreaker games. That is for me, like I am a Gen Xer, right? And I guess I by the stereotype, I'm odd because I enjoy people, right? But as soon as we walk into like a classroom or some type of training, like, hey, we're gonna play an icebreaker game, I'm immediately like, oh, no, miss me with the icebreaker games. And some people just love that, think it's great. And it's like, oh, find somebody that has the same birth month as you. And I'm like, why do I ever need to know this other person's birth month, right? Like no. And I assure you, if I want to know her name, I will go up, and introduce myself and be like, oh, hey, I don't like the icebreaker games, but I can go and I would prefer a lecture. like just like lecture me on the some things. But that is very different, and sometimes that makes it very difficult to collaborate, because even when I prepare a presentation or do a guest lecture, I have to like really kind of make sure that I'm aware of like the group of people that I'm talking to, the subject matter. And I don't talk to a room or lecture to a group of court administrators the same way that I do a 100 level college course, right? Whatever works. So I thought that was a really good point that Daniel made of like that whole concept of meeting people where they are and where they think their strengths can be best used. I think that speaks volumes. So thanks for that, sir.
Yes, those were such good answers. I would just say, I think it's such a simple concept, and you both kind of touched on it, but just finding common ground. That's the easiest way to connect with someone, is to find something in common. And that can be a work thing, oh, I prefer Form B versus Form A, or, working from 7 to 4 or what have you. Or it can be, I love Friends, or I love pizza, anything. I mean, as simple as that sounds, I think that can be the easiest and fastest way to foster those connections.
Well, and it's also, I mean, I think, we could also, a challenge and also an opportunity. I mean, if I'm being forced to work at some type of group project, right? Like we better make sure that as a leader, you're aware of who your people are, because I'm not, don't put somebody that's a Manchester City fan on my Manchester United loving soccer team. Like, don't do that. We are not going to find middle ground there. So I think that it's just really interesting, but that the middle ground that is there is that we both would share a love of soccer. They just unfortunately have terrible taste. So, but I think that middle ground it is a relatively easy concept.
So last but not least, in our opportunities for young workers, feeling valued and feeling seen. So Carrie, one of the top aspects that young workers look for in a job is to feel valued. Looking back on the topics we discussed in the 5 biggest issues for young workers this time, how do we ensure work-life balance, job security, mental health and well-being, and DEI and career growth for young workers to ensure they feel valued and seen? So how do we utilize the 5 biggest issues, our biggest opportunities, bring it all together, and how do we show individual recognition by ensuring our issues become our opportunities?
No pressure, Carrie.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if
it's
I
a
have
big
all
question.
the
I understand.
answers, because I told you guys where we're at. So, I would say, in my experience, that it really does begin with positive and reassuring onboarding. And as elementary as that sounds, I have seen a dramatic difference in taking the time to onboard someone, making sure that they thoroughly understand the responsibilities of their position, providing frequent support. When we have, I'm sure all of you probably have experienced too, through the summer, we onboarded, I think, 6 new clerks. So it was just like this revolving door of clerks. And I really injected myself into that. I'm one of our recruiters and really sort of was the secondary hand, of really checking in with folks and making sure that everyone, understood their expectations, understood their training plan, felt supported. And those folks are doing really well. Not to say that is the reason, but I do think that having that connection outside their supervisor is really important, just having some kind of lifeline. The other thing is, and I know this sounds very silly, but just calling people by name. I think this is a really something that in the business world we forget, to put people first. And that was a theme at this year's annual conference, was to put people first. And that means putting our staff first too. So when you're walking down the hall and, how's it going? Good morning, Mary. Wait and listen to what her response is. One of the things that I try to do myself is to really take the time so that I'm establishing trust with a team member so that they know that they can come. I have a safe space sign on my door door and they know that they can come in here. It's confidential. I will do what I can to sort of move the needle if they have some kind of issue that's going on. And I'll tell them what I can't do either. We also in the onboarding process are making an onboard or an orientation passport. We used to give them, checklist, which, at some point, I think I looked at all the checklists and went, my God, as a new person, this must be really overwhelming. We need to stop doing this. And so this is just a little bit more fun where they're supposed to go to each unit and learn just kind of a little ditty of what each one is responsible for, calendaring and criminal and civil. And so they're going to get, their little passport signed each time that they go to different departments. And then in the end, they get a big welcome basket of, OJD things and things like that. But in relation to that, I think as well, as leaders, it is our job to listen to staff members, whether you are the TCA, the deputy TCA, a supervisor or a manager. I really believe that it really comes to listening to your staff's needs. And that really can be an initial conversation with a new staff member from, do you need a special keyboard? Do you need a special chair? Are you sensitive? We have a new staff member that is very sensitive to the point that she gets migraines from sense. So, we really took that and she saw us go from not having a sense policy to now having a sense policy because we listened to her. So, I think in the end of the day, it's really important when we're looking at recognition that we really need to look at people. We need to take the time to listen to them and what their needs are. And the other thing too is, as I mentioned earlier, Clackamas County has historically been very non-diverse, just as a county in general. And so we're seeing that, of course, in the court. And so when I onboard somebody that might be from a marginalized community, I do spend extra time with them because we don't have the structure in place right now to fully support each of those identities. So it's like my job and my sort of heart to really make sure that they have connection to people so that if they are struggling or if they're feeling excluded in any way, they know that they can come to me and I'm going to push the needle for that. The other thing, just kind of bringing it all the way home, we do have a Bravo on the Spot award, and it's just something we really have gone through some changes with our award system because a lot of people had complaints about X, Y, and Z. So we've kind of adapted along the way. So now it's more of an on the spot. So if you see someone doing something or someone was just fabulous with customer service, it doesn't have to meet all this criteria. It can just be something very on the spot. Hence the name. We also have something that we do periodically for staff called the Cart of Joy, and we just load the cart up with coffee and juice and fruit and donuts and all the things in the morning. And then also in the afternoon, we play, sort of blare music on the little cart and we go around the court. And it's just this happy that kind of lifts people. We're talking about doing anonymous encouragement cards to leave on folks' desk because in addition to their court work, which is in and of itself enough, we also have the added task of planning a huge move. So, we just are in the process of doing a lot of things. So I guess the end result for me is really the message I would like to leave is that being transparent with your staff, it speaks volumes to staff members. We have had situations where I've heard supervisors say, well, we don't want to tell our staff that. And I'm like, what? Why not? And so I think that really, that's such an incredible opportunity to involve staff and hence their, sort of retention is probably going to be the result for you is that they feel involved in the process.
All right. Does anybody else have any other comments on this topic?
I have one last minute thought just because I feel inspired by everything Carrie and you said. A lot of the times I think and we've learned to focus and to center efficiency and productivity, and I think that's a legacy we've received. And I feel like we can still do that at the same time that we're also centering care and caring for one another. And the concept of bringing the concept of care and caring for one another into public service, I think can just magnify the impact that we have in the work that we do, right? So I love what Carrie mentioned a minute ago into listen and centering people. We're more than just our positions. We tend to fall sometimes just in our position. This is what we are and this is who we are, but we're more than that. We have a life outside of work, and our team members and our teams do us well, and sort of like honoring the full self of the individual and truly and honestly and genuinely caring for people. I think it's where the key is. So I feel inspired. So thank you, Carrie, for sharing what you did.
Agreed. You guys are all inspiring. I absolutely love it. You have brought so many fabulous ideas to the table today. All right. Well, I am very grateful for all of you. I value all of you and I see all of you. So thank you so much for joining me today in discussing the 5 biggest opportunities for young workers. I think we're all bringing a lot, and I think future generations will absolutely love some of the things that our courts are doing. So thank you all for joining me today.
I want to thank Erika, Samantha, Victoria, Carrie, Courtney, and Daniel for sharing many of the opportunities courts are providing today to entice young workers to make court administration their chosen career. These enhancements to the workplace will ensure that our profession continues to grow in the years to come. As always, my thanks to you court professionals tuning into today's episode. The opportunities we discussed today and the ones we'll discover in the future will help you continue your work at the highest level. Thank you for all you do. Join us on Tuesday, February 18th, for our next episode dealing with the issues facing our courts. This has been the Court Leaders Advantage podcast series. I'm Pete Kiefer, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us today. The Court Leaders Advantage is a regular podcast series on courts and court administration. Today's episode will be available on our website, on the Court Leader website, on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, LinkedIn, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. Become part of the conversation. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, email us. Our address is podcasts@nacomnet.org. Did you hear an interesting comment by one of the panelists that you would like to listen to again, but you don't want to search the entire episode to find it? The additional resources section of the webpage has a question time marker sheet. Find the discussion question on the sheet, and next to it is the time that question was asked. You can quickly fast forward to that time and listen to the panelists' comments. Remember, if you don't have time to watch an episode, you can always listen to the audio version. Listen in your car or on the bus on your way to or from work. You never have to miss an episode. I'm Pete Kiefer, and on behalf of our guests, the Court Leader website, and the National Association for Court Management, thank you, and have a great day. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the host and the individual presenters. They do not necessarily represent the position of the National Association for Court Management.